Everybody that comes into this office has some form of today's topic. They have some form, some level of it, perhaps without even realizing that this is going on. Sometimes we do realize that this is going on. If you want to know what that thing is, be sure to go ahead and stay tuned to this video. And let's just dive right into it, guys. As per usual, I have notes. For those that are new, welcome. As always, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here in this space. We talk about everything holistic health and wellness related on this channel. There's no topic that's off limits when it comes to holistic health. For those that are always tuning in and liking and subscribing, of course, welcome back again. And also, thank you to you guys for constantly giving some input on topics that you want to learn and see more about. So today's topic was actually inspired by somebody that said, can you make a video all about why we develop digestive issues? What's happening is that people in the functional medicine world or in the holistic healing space are starting to understand that there is some deep connection to gut health, right? We all kind of go back to that. Let me guess, you're going to tell me there's something going on with my gut. That is true. Gut health is a really important factor because the gut, and when I say gut, I mean kind of all of the organs, to be truthful, because they all have some form of support to our digestive system. Well, they all have specific jobs, and when the digestive tract and the microbes in it have problems, we actually can create a slew of stuff that's pretty unwanted in terms of symptoms. So today I want to talk about what is the kind of driving force. Why do we develop digestive issues in the first place? Like, where did this start? And then we'll talk a little bit about kind of the connection there again to symptoms and gut health. So let's just, like I said, dive in. Of course, I have notes, guys. Let's talk about the rise of digestive issues. This is a real thing. Oh my goodness. Like I said, everybody that comes into this practice has some form of this. Digestive issues are on the rise. And I want to really share with you guys before we dive into this, what does a digestive issue, what does that mean? Digestive issues mean you could be bloated, you can have bloating. Digestive issues can be any type of acid reflux or bile reflux, gallbladder sludge, gallbladder stones. These are all considered digestive issues. And the reason why is that these organs in particular have connection to the gut. They're helping process your food. They're helping you to digest things. Having issues with your pancreas, prediabetes, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome are also reasons or things why people have gut issues. These are things that can happen. And really what happens is that when we have organ dysfunction through gallbladder stones, gallbladder sludge, our mucous membrane and our stomach lining is weakened, what ends up happening is real problems arise. So there's a lot of digestive issues that people are like, no, I don't really have issues. And then I ask specific questions. Oh yeah, I am bloated. Oh, I am really, really burpy. I am belching. I'm having excessive gas. I also feel like whenever I eat, I blow up. Or even waking up, I wake up without anything in my stomach and I'm puffy. And it could be so bad for some people that they're getting congratulations that you're pregnant because the bloat is so significant. There could be underlying SIBO, bacterial imbalance. There could be SIFO. That's more small intestine related. We also want to make sure that we include other things like we just talked about, gallstones, gall sludge, pancreatic insufficiency, digestive concerns in the sense that we're not producing enough insulin, we're spewing too much insulin, we're having issues with our metabolism to some degree. That's also related to gut. Why did these things start? Where did they come from? Like, how did I get in this place of having reflux or constant bloating? That's what we're talking about right now. Let's dive into some of the more common things that probably we know a little bit about in the sense of foodborne illness or picking up different types of viruses and bacteria that cause problems. So we've all been there before, probably to some degree, where we've gone on a vacation. We were told, don't drink the water, be careful, get bottled water. And we didn't necessarily follow thoroughly. We come home and our stomach is not happy. We're bloated, we have diarrhea, there's lots of things happening. Well, those are actually instances in which we pick up critters that love to live in our stomach. And this is a really important for you guys to important point for you guys to understand that even though your symptoms are gone, For example, if someone's like, oh my gosh, I had really bad diarrhea for 5 days. I'm fine now. I'm fine. We're good, right? We're good. You might not be, because what happens is those bacteria or those viruses can still be living and hanging out inside of you, but not causing obvious symptoms. So that's something to be mindful of. It's just because you feel better, of course, that's good. We want you feeling better. That doesn't mean that you're out of the woodwork when it comes to actual digestive concerns, because those pathogens, those microbes, actually wreak havoc and change the constitution of the gut microbiome. They change the signaling pathways, and they actually can stay living in us subclinically, meaning they're kind of in the background. They're not there obviously causing problems, but they're causing subtle problems. So I want to talk a little bit about things we're kind of familiar with, right? Like we've all heard about salmonella. We've heard about eating lettuce and spinach salads or packaged foods and then coming home not feeling good. That oftentimes has E. coli bacteria kind of in salads. We know salmonella. We typically think about chicken, undercooked eggs. There are also other types of things as well that can create stress, not just from kind of common things, but a little bit more uncommon things. So we all know about rotavirus. We all know about norovirus, salmonella, E. coli, listeria monocytogenes from unpasteurized milk and unpasteurized dairy. Those are ways that we actually can introduce pathogens into the system and create some problems. Another way that we actually can introduce pathogens into the stomach is viral load. So we just talked a little bit about more bacteria types of species, but viruses create stress. So obviously we all kind of know what happened with C19, and there were some symptoms associated with that. Well, digestive symptoms were also included on the list. Viruses cause problems in our stomach. And a lot of those viruses can be things like, obviously we talked about C19, little children with rotavirus, Epstein-Barr virus, which is herpes simplex 4. There's actually many different strains of herpes viruses. There's probably about 15 of them in total, and they all can create a lot of problems for our gut. Cytomegalovirus viruses are reasons that we develop digestive issues, and we don't always know that we have a virus. And like I said before, guys, just because you're not super symptomatic doesn't mean that there's not stuff still living inside the gut. That can be happening for a lot of people. So I have a couple things, notes here, that way I can remember to share with you guys. Another thing that is actually kind of it's a double-edged sword is medication. So in particular, proton pump inhibitors, Prilosec, Tagament, omeprazole, name brands, off-label brands, all the things, Pepcid. These are types of things that actually stop your ability to digest. What happens is that we need a very potent and robust response from hydrochloric acid. So our stomach, everybody's stomach, all of our stomachs should produce hydrochloric acid. That's a normal physiologic response. When we take antacids, we are actually blocking our body's ability to produce hydrochloric acid, which means we're not digesting our food. So what I'm saying is, yes, if you take an antacid, you will be bloated. You will also block your ability to digest food appropriately, okay? Because we need that hydrochloric acid in our stomach to allow us to break apart and rip apart the chemical molecules so we're able to process our food appropriately. And it's a catch-22. I often work with patients that say, but I take this and I'm bloated and I'm having inconsistent bowel movements. Well, part of that is because you're taking it. So we have to get to the crux and the core of why do we have perhaps mucilaginous membrane issues, which that's really going on in reflux. Reflux means it's not an acid problem. Acid reflux is not an acid problem. The medications are misleading in the terms of acid. They use the word acid. Well, they are working on acid. Hydrochloric acid is the name of it. But the problem is not your acid production as you should produce it. Most people actually, if anything, have low acid, not too much acid. We actually want to focus on the gut mucous membrane, the stomach mucous membrane. We want to rebuild the lining, not stop your ability to produce hydrochloric acid, because then that means that you're missing out on vital foods, which then means you're missing out on vital nutrients like selenium and iodine, which then means you're at risk for developing complications, for example, thyroid dysfunction. So that's kind of why you guys start to see the gut being so involved. So as you track and understand the physiologic responses happening inside the body, we start to understand, oh, that makes sense, right? I'm not absorbing, which means I can't provide nutrients to my thyroid, which those nutrients are allowing me to actually form hormones. Those nutrients are actually governing the processing of T3 and T4 and the conversion of them. And we need really good, healthy gut to do that. So any type of proton pump inhibitor, you have a digestive issue. Now, it is a little bit complicated because how did you get in the place of having to be on that in the first place? Was it a virus? Was it Helicobacter pylori, which is normally in our stomach? Sometimes we have imbalances of that. You could have had an H. pylori infection that created reflux without realizing that, oh, I'm taking reflux medication, but I'm not really addressing the problem. You could have picked up a critter. We talked about some of the more common ones in terms of food, like salmonella, even Staphylococcus aureus, listeria. These are all common foodborne components that they live in us. Another really important thing to talk about is that when we don't have hydrochloric acid, we lose our barrier to the external environment, meaning that my stomach and my esophagus are exposed to some degree to my external environment. That's kind of the closest thing we have. That's the septation or the separation between external world and internal world in my gut. If we break down that barrier, we allow further pathogens to come into the gut and into the stomach and create problems. So from an immune perspective, we have to have good gut health, because if we don't, that barrier is weakened. And now we're allowing foreign invaders that shouldn't be in us to live and breed and reside and have a party in our stomach, our small intestine, our colon, and create inflammation. We can develop diverticulitis. We can develop all types of IBS. Infections, they're finding more and more that infections are linked to IBS, either C and D, both of them. Critters in the gut. When I say infection, I mean critters in the gut. Obviously, organ dysfunction by default. So organ dysfunction is a cause of digestive issues, and having organ dysfunction causes digestive issues. So it's a little bit of a kind of interesting connection between them, that if, for example, I have gallbladder stones or sludge, if someone once told me my gallbladder is not optimal, I'm not able to process fat as appropriately as I should be, that makes me weakened as well. I can't emulsify is the term that we use, or process fat. Now I have weight gain, and now I'm burping and belching. So a lot of biliary system stuff, liver and gallbladder in particular, are connected to the ability to produce stool. We actually get a lot of the pathways and the compounds that allow us to create stool, the color of the stool, stercobilinogen, all these things get dumped from our liver into our stool so that we can actually create healthy poop. And if we have problems in our liver gallbladder, often for people, there's two things that happen. Typically in those instances, it's diarrhea. They're struggling to process food. It's just going right through them. Typically that's what we find. Also constipation. So really either end of the spectrum is a possible option when someone's dealing with having biliary dysfunction. Typically it's a little bit more common to have constant diarrhea. In those instances, there's no processing of their fat, which oftentimes leads to weight gain. They're not extracting and using fat appropriately. And that's a really big part of hormone health. Often people that have gallbladder dysfunction or have no gallbladder, you take the gallbladder out, the nerves are still there, so you can still have pain. Yes, the liver does start to produce bile, as it always did. The gallbladder just holds it. And the ability for the concentration and kind of the way the bile is processed goes down when we don't have a gallbladder. So there are some things, we need our organs. We were brought into this earth with our organs. I do believe that we need them for a reason. And so what happens with people that are missing their gallbladder or have stones or sludge, they end up having further digestive issues because their barrier is weakened, and they're also just by default not processing foods, which then ends up causing sex hormone imbalance. They start to have estrogen problems, testosterone problems, weight gain is another kind of common thing. So you guys are probably hearing me speak and say, oh, I'm following the connection from start, which is organ, digestive organ, and I'm realizing how connected it is to other organ systems, which that's why we always go back to the gut. Stomach acid. So a lot of times digestive issues can happen from having low hydrochloric acid. We actually do have more often than not, low stomach acid production, more so than too much acid production for a lot of people. That's a little bit more common. Achlorhydria is the name of it. And so what happens is that we're not producing enough hydrochloric acid, which means we're not able to properly digest our food. Now, there are some cofactors, some minerals and elements that are involved in being able to produce enough hydrochloric acid. For example, zinc. It's really, really important that we have zinc, and also B vitamins, the whole family, B1, B2, B5, B6, B7, B12. These are all required nutrients to be able to make hydrochloric acid. And so our stomach, when it's weakened, it breeds further digestive issues. Food hasn't been processed. It's moving on to the next player in the game, and we're not really done absorbing it to some capacity. So we can create things like leaky gut. We actually can have increased permeability through zonulin increases and different things that happen in the digestive system. But stomach health is so important. Stomach health, gallbladder health, liver health, spleen health. Spleen is not so much digestive in nature, it's more immune. Red blood cells go there to kind of regenerate themselves. But any organ dysfunction is connected to just general health in total. We talked a little bit about in the beginning about bacterial imbalance. So things like SIBO and SIFO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or small intestinal fungal overgrowth. How do we get bacteria? How do we get fungus? We don't have the barriers to the environment. That's how we get them. There's lots of things that can happen, sometimes just pharmaceuticals. When we wipe out our colony from taking long-term doxycycline, long-term antibiotic, we kill everything. All the good guys, all the good critters, the bad critters, bye-bye everybody. And if we don't strategically re-inoculate, what can happen is that now other bad things, I go to eat my salad and I don't realize that there's E. coli on it. Well, normally I'm in a good place, but because I have weakness in my stomach, now that E. coli can thrive and live inside of me. There's no barrier, there's no protection anymore. And so it's really important for everything to be connected. And by default, our enzyme content goes down. So that's what I do. I practice enzyme therapy. I work with enzymes in clinical practice. And a lot of people are enzyme deficient. Now, where do we even get enzymes in the first place? Well, they're naturally in us. They're native to our health. We make them, we produce them. We also should be getting a high content of enzymes from our food, but we don't actually get them because we have a tendency to cook our food and grill our food and char our food and microwave our food. That is a reason that our enzyme content goes down just by default. A lot of us are walking around enzyme deficient. We're enzyme deficient. And I really like to use this analogy for people to understand how important enzymes are. So for example, 99% of the population does not process lactose. So lactose is a compound that is in other animals' milk. When we drink, for example, cow milk, sheep milk, goat milk, we're the only species actually that does that. We're the only species that drinks milk from another animal. And kind of by default, perhaps that's not maybe the right thing for us, for some of us. Nonetheless, we end up getting extremely bloated and we end up having issues with our bowel movements from doing this. What's happening there? Like what's going on? Why are so many people having issues with dairy? Why do we have dairy problems? Why do we develop eczema and skin issues from eating dairy? What happens is that we're enzyme deficient. We as humans don't have the enzyme called lactase in order to process lactose. So being lactose intolerant is an enzyme deficiency. And my point of the story about sharing that with you guys is that imagine how people feel when they're missing that one enzyme. They're just missing lactase. We're just missing lactase. People can become so uncomfortable from dairy. Gas can come up all the way into their back, into their kind of upper apices of the lungs. They're like, God, I'm so bloated. Gas pain is no joke. I've had patients have to go to the ER just to be told you're constipated and you have gas all stuck in your abdominal pelvic cavity. And so with that being said, it's an enzyme deficiency. And you don't really need a medical degree to understand this, that that's just one enzyme deficiency, that if we're missing one enzyme and those are all the symptoms that we get from eating dairy, imagine if we're missing all other enzymes, how else we might be feeling or what other symptoms can arise from enzyme deficiencies. So there's lactase, there's different protease enzymes, all different types of enzymes, glucuronidase, hyaluronidase, transferase. There's so many different classifications. If you guys are interested to learn more about enzyme therapy, which is what I practice, I have a video dedicated to this. Click the video that is called Enzyme Replacement Therapy. That way you can learn all about the classifications and categories of enzymes. The point of the story is that we are enzymatically alive. And if we deplete our enzyme content from lifestyle factors, from toxins, we actually will have digestive issues. So that's another reason that we're having digestive issues on the rise, is because we're enzyme deficient. We're enzyme deficient. Not even to mention mycotoxins, heavy metals. We're bombarded. I kind of describe it as, imagine we have a shield around us and we have holes, gaping holes in our shield. That's what can happen when we're weakened. There are constant critters that we're bombarded by. If you look at immunology and kind of what happens in our environment, viruses, bacteria, mold, fungus, spores are always coming at our shield. It's like boom, 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 boom. We need good shields. We have to make sure that our shield is nice and strong. That shield is going to be gut health. That's the way to think about the shield. That shield that protects your immunity is from good gut health. I want to also bring this up. This is a very important clinical pearl to just take home from this video. Just because you might not have obvious symptoms of digestive issues doesn't mean you don't have a digestive issue hiding. A lot of people say, no, I'm fine. My stomach's fine. I don't have reflux. I feel great. I don't have anything obvious. I'm fine. But I do have Hashimoto's, and I do have lupus, and I had a positive ANA, and I have inflammation that's elevated, and I have hormone imbalance. Something is going on with the gut in those instances. So you don't have to be symptomatic. You do not have to be symptomatic to harbor a digestive concern. Just want to make that really clear. So I think that's it, guys. Let me just confirm. We talked a little bit about infection. We could go into all the things about heavy metals and environmental toxins in like a full video. We talked a little bit about organ dysfunction, low enzyme content, gallbladder dysfunction, achlorhydria, all the things in terms of viruses, norovirus, Clostridium, all the things that we pick up. So I hope that this was a little bit insightful for you guys to really take home the point that, oh, my gut is so important for my ability to digest, which my ability to digest and process food affects my immune system, my sleep, my sex hormones, my thyroid hormones, my adrenal hormones. All of it goes back to the gut. So for all my functional medicine gurus out there, for all my holistic healers, you know this. Hopefully this video kind of clarified a little bit more kind of how the progression of these things evolves. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. That helps me to know that you're enjoying this. It also helps the YouTube algorithm know that these videos are helpful. And also be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with all things holistic health and wellness related. For example, today I'm doing an Instagram live with a friend, a dear friend of mine who's into holistic beauty and skincare. She's been in the cosmetic industry for many years now, but we're having a segment all about polycystic ovarian syndrome and acne. How do you get notified as you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel? And be sure to stay up to date with me on Instagram and also Facebook. I'm pretty much myself on all platforms. If you love this stuff and want to keep the conversation open, be sure to follow. I will see you guys. Hopefully I'll see you guys today at 11 in the Instagram live segment. If not, I'll see you in our next video.